Welcome back to Stamps Old World UK, where history meets value, and where every stamp has a story. In today's deep dive episode, we uncover the secrets, history, and current market value of one of America's most recognizable postage stamps, the majestic 3-cent George Washington stamp. Whether you're a seasoned philatelist, a curious collector, or someone who stumbled upon this iconic purple stamp in an old album, by the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of its place in postal history, its variations, and most importantly, what it's worth in today's market. Let's begin by examining the origins of the 3-cent Washington stamp. This classic violet-hued stamp featuring a finely detailed engraving of George Washington was issued by the United States Post Office Department and has seen several printings between the late 1800s and the early to mid-1900s. While the specific design in our image resembles the 1932 Washington bicentennial issue or the earlier 1910s to 1920s regular issue from the Washington Franklin series, what unites them all is their common tribute to the first president of the United States and a founding father who holds legendary status in American history. The 3-cent denomination during this period was primarily used for domestic first-class letters, making this one of the most widely circulated stamps of its time. Now, what makes this stamp potentially valuable in today's collector's market? The value of any stamp, and especially this George Washington 3-cent, is determined by several critical factors. These include its issue date, print variation, perforation type, watermark, condition, centering, cancellation mark if any, and of course, rarity. A mint condition stamp, meaning it has never been used and retains its original gum on the back, can command significantly higher prices than one that has been postally used. Additionally, small details like a misprint, inverted image, off-center design, or color variation can dramatically increase its value, sometimes turning an otherwise common stamp into a rare and highly sought-after collectible. So how much is a standard 3-cent George Washington stamp worth today? Let's break it down. A used example in average condition can generally be found selling for anywhere from 25 cents to $2 in today's market. These are common and easy to come by in collector bundles or old family albums. However, stamps in fine condition with clear postmarks can range from $3 to $10, especially if sold individually to collectors who are looking to complete a very specific collection. But where things get really interesting is with mint condition examples. A clean, centered, and used 3-cent Washington stamp can easily fetch between $10 and $50 depending on demand and condition. And for rare variations, such as certain 1917 to 1919 perf types, or stamps with rare watermarks or printing errors, collectors have paid prices well over $100, in some cases even up to $500 or more for pristine examples certified by philatelic experts. One of the most valuable variations of the 3-cent George Washington stamp is from the 1851 to 1861 issues or any of the early 1860s types with experimental grill patterns. While they may look similar to the more common 20th century prints at first glance, the paper type, color tone, and printing method are drastically different. For example, a rare 1867 3-cent rose stamp with a Z-grill once sold for tens of thousands of dollars at auction. Another incredibly valuable variation is any George Washington stamp with a misprinted denomination or missing perforations. These are the hidden gems that philatelists hunt for, and they can dramatically increase the stamp's value in today's market. Condition, of course, cannot be stressed enough. Collectors look for stamps with intact perforations, vibrant color, no tears or thins, and a centered design. Stamps that meet these criteria are graded as fine to superb. Certification also plays a major role. A stamp authenticated by the Philatelic Foundation or the American Philatelic Society will naturally sell for a higher price than one without documentation, even if it appears identical. So if you believe you have a valuable George Washington 3-cent stamp, getting it professionally evaluated could be a worthwhile investment. Let's also touch on the global market perspective. While this stamp is an American issue, collectors from around the world, especially in the UK, Europe, and Asia, actively seek out high-grade US classic stamps. Online auction platforms such as eBay, Delcamp, and specialized sites like Stamp Auction Network frequently list these stamps with bidding wars pushing prices higher than catalog estimates. It's not unusual to see a $5 catalog stamp sell for $25 or more when two determined bidders compete to complete a collection or secure a particularly well-centered specimen. So where does that leave us today in terms of dollar value? As of 2025, a well-preserved used 3-cent Washington stamp is worth about $1 to $5 on average. Mint condition versions can range from $10 to $75 depending on variety. Rare varieties, errors, or expertly graded versions can be worth hundreds or even thousands in exceptional cases. But beyond the price, these stamps carry immense historical significance. Owning one is like holding a piece of America's postal heritage in the palm of your hand, a tiny but powerful emblem of a bygone era, printed and delivered during a time when letters connected a nation. If you have one of these stamps and are curious about its worth, I recommend comparing it with current listings on major auction sites, consulting the Scott catalog for a baseline value, or seeking an expert opinion from a certified philatelist. And always remember, condition, rarity, and demand are the three pillars of stamp value. Next up, the 3-cent George Washington stamp. This is not just one design, but rather a whole category of stamps that span several decades, appearing in different forms, colors, printing styles, and postal eras. We will explore their background, subtle variations, the factors that influence their value, and what collectors in today's market, in 2025, are paying for these treasured pieces of postal heritage. Whether you're here as a beginner or a seasoned collector, this video will give you one of the most comprehensive breakdowns of the 3-cent Washington stamp family ever made. Let's begin with the larger historical context. The use of George Washington on United States postage stamps goes back to the very beginning of U.S. stamp production. As the nation's founding father and first president, Washington became the symbol of American independence and unity. Over time, his image appeared on more U.S. stamps than any other figure in history. But the specific 3-cent denomination holds a special place. From the mid-1800s through the early 20th century, the 3-cent rate was the cost of sending a standard first-class letter domestically. This made 3-cent stamps the workhorses of their time, printed in the hundreds of millions, sent all across the country, and now surviving as relics of a bygone communication era. The first stamp we're focusing on is the elegant and richly detailed version featuring George Washington in a framed oval, printed in a distinctive violet or purple shade. This design is most closely associated with the early 20th century, specifically the 1932 Washington Bicentennial Series. These were issued to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth and were part of a broader campaign to honor his legacy. The artwork is elaborate, featuring flourishes around the frame and a strong portrait engraving of Washington facing forward. These stamps were widely used and survive in great numbers today, but not all of them are created equal. When we evaluate stamps for value, we must always consider 4 core attributes: condition, rarity, demand, and variation. Let's take condition first. A stamp in poor condition, torn corners, missing perforations, heavy cancellations, or staining, is typically worth very little, perhaps just a few cents. However, a stamp in fine to superb condition, especially if it is mint, and used, with original gum, and well-centered, can be worth many times more. Rarity comes next. While many 3-cent Washington stamps were printed in large quantities, specific issues, such as those with experimental paper, limited regional print runs, or errors, are considerably scarcer. Demand also plays a role. There is always strong collector interest in George Washington stamps, especially those from the early to mid-20th century. Finally, variation is perhaps the most important factor when it comes to these stamps. Small differences in perforation gauge, watermark, color shade, printing method, or even printer errors can mean the difference between a stamp worth $1 and one worth several hundred. So what is the current value in 2025? A standard, used 3-cent Washington stamp from the 1932 bicentennial issue, in average condition, sells for about 25 cents to $2. Mint versions with original gum and in fine or better condition typically range from $5 to $20. If the stamp is exceptionally well centered and has been graded by professional bodies like the Professional Stamp Experts or the Philatelic Foundation, it could command prices from $50 to $150 depending on grade and market demand. But it's the rare varieties, inverted centers, double impressions, color shifts, and printing anomalies that truly turn heads. Some error examples have fetched over $500 at auction, especially when certified and slabbed. Now let's turn our attention to the second stamp image you provided, the classic Washington Franklin 3-cent design. This series, issued between 1908 and 1922, is one of the most complex in the history of U.S. stamps. At first glance, all Washington Franklin stamps look quite similar, the profile of George Washington or Benjamin Franklin, typically enclosed in an oval frame, with minimal decoration. But beneath this simplicity lies a maze of variations that has fascinated and frustrated collectors for over a century. These stamps were printed with multiple perforation gauges, perf 10, perf 11, perf 12, and with different watermarks, including single line, double line, and unwatermarked paper. Some were printed on bluish paper, a rare and highly sought-after variety. Identifying a Washington Franklin stamp's true catalog number often requires expert tools and knowledge. A small difference in the size of the design, the spacing of the perforations, or the type of paper could indicate a stamp worth 50 cents, or $5,000. That's not an exaggeration. For instance, a genuine 3-cent Washington Franklin stamp on bluish paper with a clear strike and mint gum has been known to fetch over $10,000 in top condition. Similarly, misperforated or imperforate varieties, especially those that come from booklet panes or coil issues, are among the rarest treasures in American philately. In 2025, these Washington Franklin 3-cent stamps are still hotly pursued. A standard used copy in average condition might only fetch $1 or $2. But even slightly better examples, those with lighter cancels, good centering, or on cover, can sell for $5 to $10 each. Mint condition stamps go for $20 to $50, and rarer watermarked or miscut issues can exceed $100. Expert graded specimens with high centering grades like XF 90 or XF Sup 95 can sell for hundreds, and sometimes more, when offered at auction. What makes these stamps particularly appealing is that many of the valuable types are hiding in plain sight, misidentified in old albums, mislabeled in dealer stock, or buried in family collections. Let's also not forget the educational aspect of these stamps. They offer not just monetary value but insight into American printing history, postal development, and the evolution of government communication. The fact that we are still talking about a 3-cent piece of paper over 100 years later is a testament to the enduring power of philately. Stamp collecting is not only a hobby but also a form of preservation, allowing us to trace the artistic and cultural priorities of past generations. George Washington, depicted on these stamps, becomes not just a historical figure but a symbol of continuity, appearing across eras and changing printing technologies, yet always recognizably American. So what can we take away from this? If you own any 3-cent George Washington stamps, it's time to take a second look. Examine the paper. Count the perforations. Hold the stamp under a strong light to see if there's a watermark. Consider comparing it against a current Scott specialized catalog, or even better, send it to a philatelic expert for evaluation. You could be holding something worth far more than you think, perhaps a forgotten treasure from a relative's old correspondence folder or album. And even if it's not a high-dollar rarity, you're still holding a beautiful artifact, one that once connected people, carried news across the continent, and bore the image of a nation's first president with pride. Here on Stamps Old World UK, our mission is to bring these stories back to life, to help collectors understand the true value of what they have, and to inspire the next generation of philatelists. The market for vintage stamps is very much alive, collectors are active, auctions are competitive, and rare issues continue to rise in value. Whether you're a full-time dealer or a weekend hobbyist, the thrill of discovering a rare stamp or learning something new about a common one is part of what makes this world so exciting. Next up, the world of 3-cent American postage stamps, the magnificent 1947 U.S. postage stamp centenary commemorative. This particular stamp was issued to mark the 100-year anniversary of U.S. postage stamps, beginning in 1847. Its design features a powerful combination of both historical tribute and technological celebration. On the left is the first President of the United States, George Washington, who appeared on the very first U.S. postage stamp issued in 1847. On the right is Benjamin Franklin, who was not only one of the founding fathers but also the very first Postmaster General of the United States. Between them, at the center of the stamp, is a compelling visual progression of transportation, a rider on horseback representing early mail routes, a steam train symbolizing industrial progress, an airplane capturing the spirit of modern airmail, and a mighty ocean liner reflecting global communication. The overall message is clear: from humble beginnings to a century of innovation, the U.S. postal system was worthy of celebration. This 3-cent commemorative is more than just a postage stamp, it's a story told in ink. Designed and engraved by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, this blue-toned horizontal stamp was printed in vast quantities, as it was intended for nationwide use during the centennial celebrations. Because of this wide distribution, it is not considered rare by default, but as always, when it comes to stamps, condition, rarity of variation, centering, and whether it is mint or used can make a world of difference in market value. In today's collector market of 2025, a typical used copy of the 1947 U.S. stamp centenary issue is valued at about $25 to $70, depending on the cancel mark and condition. However, unused or mint versions with original gum and no damage tend to sell for $100 to $500. Collectors who specialize in centenary or commemorative issues may pay a bit more for perfectly centered or plate-numbered examples. Mint condition plate blocks, blocks of 4 or more stamps that show the margin with the plate number, can sell for $100 to $250, especially if the gum is undisturbed and the condition is graded as fine to very fine. Stamps graded with high centering or certified as XF 90 or better by a professional grading body may command $500 or more, particularly if listed in an auction environment. However, there are a few collectible subtypes that can increase the value of this stamp significantly. For example, first-day covers, FDCs, special envelopes cancelled on the very first day of the stamp's release, are very desirable to thematic collectors. A well-preserved 1947 centenary FDC, especially one with a cachet, a printed design or artwork on the envelope, from a prominent maker like Artcraft or Fleetwood, can be worth $100 to $400, depending on rarity and cachet artwork. Collectors of transportation-themed stamps, Americana, and commemoratives often seek these FDCs as highlights of their collections. There are also era varieties, though rare, that can dramatically raise the value. Examples include misperforated sheets, where the perforation does not align properly, or color shift errors, in which part of the design is out of register. These anomalies are not commonly found, but when they do appear at auctions or specialized dealers, they can sell for hundreds of dollars. Even items like imperforate pairs from proofs or limited experimental pressings, though not standard, are highly collectible and can add serious value to a centenary-themed collection. What also makes this stamp historically significant is its symbolic storytelling. It captures the rapid advancement of American communication systems within a single image. Franklin and Washington stand as bookends of tradition and leadership, while the various forms of transport represent the march of time. This stamp is a favorite among collectors not only for its aesthetics but for its message, a reminder that the story of stamps is also the story of a nation's growth. So what's the verdict in 2025? While this 3-cent centenary stamp is widely available and generally low in catalog value for common conditions, it remains one of the most beloved U.S. commemorative stamps. Its appeal lies in its design complexity, historical narrative, and its ability to tie together the roots of American postage with the innovations that came after. Well-preserved specimens, especially in mint sheet format, plate blocks, or certified FDCs, still hold real collector value. As always, condition and presentation matter. A stamp might catalog for $200, but if it's graded, clean, and part of a thematic collection or framed display, its value could be many times higher to the right buyer or auction house. For collectors based in the UK or anywhere in the world, US commemoratives like this are a popular addition to global stamp albums. They represent key milestones not just in American history, but in the broader history of communication and transportation. The centenary stamp serves as a perfect educational piece for collectors young and old, a miniature history lesson in blue ink. And when paired with other centenary or Franklin Washington issues, it helps form a powerful visual story of how far stamps, and the societies that issue them, have come in just 100 years. So there you have it, a full journey through 3 legendary versions of the 3-cent George Washington stamp legacy. From the Washington-Franklin series of the early 20th century, to the ornate bicentennial portrait of 1932, and finally to the dramatic centenary issue of 1947, each stamp offers a distinct view into America's postal and political past. Thank you once again for watching Stamps Old World UK. If you've stayed with us through this extended episode, we salute you as a true student of Philately. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more deep dives, and leave a comment below with your own favorite US stamp or your collection story. And remember, that box of old stamps in your attic or drawer might contain more than just faded paper. It could hold a piece of forgotten history, quietly waiting to be rediscovered. Until next time, keep collecting, keep exploring, and keep the world of classic stamps alive, one perforated masterpiece at a time.